Okay, I call the planning board meeting to order. This is planning board regularly scheduled meeting for Wednesday, May 29th, 2019. If we can all rise, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you all for attending. We have a number of items on the agenda here tonight. As a matter of order, for each application, I understand that there will be a number of individuals that will want to make public comment or may have comments in regards to the specific application. Planning board will entertain public comment at the end of presentation of each application by the applicant. We ask any individual with a comment stand up to the podium, please give their name and address, and offer comment. We ask that any comment be directed to the board and stay directed to the board, not to an individual or an individual member of the board. If there is a group of people that have similar comments, in a matter of timing, if they had one representative, that would be great. If not, we'll entertain each individual. Same thing with time. Once again, in a matter of time, if we can keep comments to 3 minutes, that'd be great. We ask for your consideration. So with that said, we have our first application, which is planning board application number 2018-02 to Pike Street. This is a request to modify the previously approved site plan to remove the large single waste dumpster with concrete slab from the northeast corner of the site and replace with 2 additional parking spaces. Replace trash collection area on southeast corner of the building with 3 90-gallon rolling containers to be placed on a concrete slab. Applicant's 15 Champlain LLC. Plan preparer is RMS.
Mr. Chairman, I have to excuse myself from this application.
Okay.
Kurt is first on that. Kurt, I do have your name right there.
Okay.
Good evening. Pretty straightforward. We were here last fall for the historical site plan review. We went around and around on the renovation of the property. Since that date, the applicant's looking to modify the plan. Basically, the original site plan had a dumpster enclosure in the far right-hand side of the site, that was fenced in, a single large dumpster. What he's looking to do is get rid of the large dumpster and utilize 90-gallon containers that would be stored adjacent to the building on a concrete slab in the rear of the building, so completely screened from the public view and all the surrounding properties. Basically, the applicant feels the 3 90-gallon containers gives it better control and also a little more aesthetically pleasing. It's utilized in other properties that we've represented before this board, Tall Pines, for example. Rather than having an obstacle in the corner that doesn't always look the best, no matter how nice the fence is or anything else. So really not changing anything to the site aspect as far as the building changes, all the other conditions of approval that we went through. Just really getting rid of the concrete dumpster and utilizing 3 90-gallon roll-away containers in lieu of that single dumpster.
Same coverage area as was before, I guess that's the only question.
Everything, right. So everything, basically the dumpster area that was proposed is, would be asphalt in the end, so it actually gives us 2 more parking spaces, but it doesn't change our lot coverage or anything like that. So everything, as I said, stays as previously approved, all with the original conditions of approval, just eliminating that single dumpster in its location. The code officer felt that was a large enough change that warranted coming back to you for authorization.
So will I apologize, will the hauler be coming to grab those containers from
Yes.
that location? and-
They will roll them all the way out to the street from the
Yeah.
back? Okay,
The hauler will come in and enter the site, actually wheel them out. So
Okay.
they won't be put out on the curb
Yeah,
at the
that's-
end of the day, so we won't have that. They'll enter the site and take them out from the site,
From the sidewalk.
from internally.
They'll
Got
drive,
it.
they'll
Yeah.
drive in.
All right, so we will not haul those out to the front, busy sidewalk. and
Yeah,
out on the
road
side.
frontage, right.
Completely understand.
Okay.
So could you clarify whether you've already paved that area that you're talking about with asphalt? And is the area you're talking about using, does that have a concrete pad as indicated on the plans?
I know the asphalt, when the site contractor was there last fall, he did pave that area. So that is paved. I know they've been pouring sidewalks. They poured a bunch of them last week. I can't confirm whether that piece was done, but I know they were on site working on the sidewalks, but it will be done as part of the condition approval, so.
Any further questions from the board? I mean, it does appear to be a minor modification.
Minor, yeah, and probably for the good as well, yeah, tuck behind the home, so, yeah.
And they've represented that the hauler will take the containers and bring the containers back to that
Mhm.
location.
of course, we can't
Operation.
make that forever. You know,
No.
different owner of the building, different hauler,
Yeah.
probably might not
It's-
happen in the future, but
Still,
Fine. That can be a condition. I have no problem with that condition.
Still a-
We can put-
still a fair representation.
yeah.
That's good.
I guess if there's no further comment, do I have a motion to accept the amendment as presented?
Motion to accept the amendment as presented?
Second.
John, second by Derek. Can I have a roll call?
Chairman, excuse me, Chairman James O'Donnell,
Yes.
John Rosa,
Yes.
Martha Gilbert,
Yes,
Derek Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Kurt Irving.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to the second application on the agenda.
okay, I have to recuse on this.
This is Planning Board Item 2018-13, 3 Circle Grove.
Who's gonna replace me?
So project description is request to review proposed retaining wall, site grading, and
Can you come
related
down here,
improvements for 3 Circle Grove. The applicant is Michael Racine, and the plan preparer is RMS. We do have one
Yeah, why
recusal
not?
from the board.
So, yeah, and so who's my substitute? Who's gonna come sit here?
Kurt.
I'm here.
Might as well just stay down here.
Kurt will substitute.
Okay.
You good?
Back to the recording.
Okay.
Literally.
Aaron or Mr. Racine?
Thank you again tonight for having us. Mr. Racine's here in the audience with me, also the landowner. We were before you late last fall with this project. The code enforcement officer had some concerns that were expressed by neighbors as far as the stormwater design and the proposed retaining wall along the easterly side of the property. He referred this project to you. We came before you, and there were some technical questions as far as the stormwater calculations that we provided, and the board felt it'd be prudent to send those out to a third party to review. Since then, the third party has reviewed the proposal and provided a letter in response to that, verbatim, but it's in your file, that they have no further questions or comments regarding the plan. So we're here tonight, basically looking at the proposed block retaining wall along the east side, as we were before, with the proposed wood wrapping to help with the aesthetics, and the plantings as proposed along that easterly side.
If I can just add that the third-party review, GPI, their only finding of note was a 4-inch solid drain pipe is proposed as being abandoned under the concrete block wall This pipe should be considered for removal. The pipe appears to be disturbed during the trenching and placement of drainage stone and be easier to construct if it was removed.
Okay. Yes, in response to that, if you look at the detail of the block wall, the block wall sits on a gravel bed. And there was some drainage pipe installed, and there were pictures presented at prior meetings about that piece of pipe. With the proposed final remedy for construction, we need to install a 6-inch pipe perforated, connect the gutters to it, and do all that work. If that pipe is encountered during that work, we have no objection taking it out, but to pick the blocks up, to go looking for a pipe to try to, clean it up, we don't see it as an issue abandoning it in place. It is an SCR 35, so it is a plastic pipe that has a life expectancy of forever, basically. So we don't see that as a issue, but, obviously, while we're exposing the back of the wall to put in the 6-inch perforated pipe and connecting in all the roof leaders, we will move any piece of the pipe that we find in our way when we're doing that work.
So GPI, I guess, is recommending that the pipe be removed in full. Is there another option to, fill the pipe?
Yeah, I mean, I think, talking with the landowner as far as its placement, it's, our typical details show that, towards the bottom, it is towards the back, so if we have to remove it, we'll expose, I guess, completely behind it and remove, the pipe that's there. It's not doing anything, it is solid, so you don't have to worry about fines silting into it, so it's, no different than having a storm line in the city street, it's plastic, it's brand new, it's be there for another 150 years minimum, so. But, obviously, we will, as I said, we will move, as we excavate the backside of that wall to put in our new tile, we will remove everything that we see. Obviously, we don't want to get into a situation where we're, tearing the blocks out and then putting them right back in again.
Okay. Is there any other further comments, questions from the board in that regards?
I guess what's changed since last time you guys were here? We've just been waiting for the third-party review, and now we have it.
We
On this
gave
part.
the hydraulic calculations to the third party, they reviewed them. We proposed a 4-inch perforated pipe, they asked us upsize it to 6. So we did that, and I believe, clean up, I had some spot elevations to help clarify, because the concern was where that pipe outlets, making sure that the drainage continues from the end of that wall into the existing city's drainage easement
Okay.
on adjacent property. So some real minor notes to the map, so we addressed those comments, sent it back, and they came back with a final response.
And so basically the 6-inch perforated pipe is gonna go behind the block wall,
Correct,
just to the west of it?
yes,
And everything ties into that as far as
correct.
gutters,
Roof leaders, yep,
Coming down to the south.
yes,
and that empties into that swale?
correct.
Okay.
Right, it's designed as an infiltration, so the stone and the pipe all help actually take that water, help it perk back into the ground, and obviously during your higher storm events, it would have a potential overflow.
Okay.
Okay, I guess the secondary item in the planning review was in regards to the architectural aesthetics, which under the zoning ordinance, planning board has some review component.
And that has not changed since our last time we were before you, where we proposed wrapping the wall with a wood lattice basically to help screen it, and then also we moved the hedge further uphill to help provide more of a visual barrier at the, comments based on neighbors. So again, those have not changed since the last time we were here before you.
So in this case, the hedge is gonna be above the
Yep.
wall?
Yeah, that was a comment I think that was made by the board and maybe even the third party about wanting to move it higher up on the slope to help prevent the root penetration into the drainage stone in the backside of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So we accepted that.
Okay.
I think the last time you were here, there was a question of primary power coming from the transformer that the concrete would be over the top of.
There's an easement, an MLD easement, and I believe there's correspondence provided from MLD, saying that they were fine with the location of the wall as proposed. I believe there's an email from Joel Chase in the file that addressed that,
With the current plan.
based on the current condition, yes.
Okay, any further comments, questions from the board? If not, anything else from the applicant?
No question from me, or?
Okay, if,
There was the county comments from back in September, do you want those read in the record again, or?
do you have those comments? Sure, why don't we,
It will only be for a refresher if the board wanted to,
Does-
in the record or write it in there.
What are these comments?
The county
County.
comments from back in September.
The county comments.
yeah,
County board.
Because the project's located within the county highway.
does anybody from the board wanna hear the county planning board comments again?
That's what was included in our packet here? That was from back in January, September, okay.
September.
I would hear the county comments.
You wanna hear them again?
Sure.
Okay,
Decision regarding referral 68-18, City of Plattsburgh Planning Board applicant Michael Singh, site plan review for retaining wall, 3 Circle Grove. The Clinton County Planning Board at its September 5th, 2018 meeting voted 7-0 to consider this request a local issue but provide the following comments to the city. The adjacent neighbor to this project provided photographs and information that brings up many of the problems with allowing retaining walls on the actual property line, or in some cases allowing them at all. This is a dense residential area, and drainage issues are certainly impacted easily by the creation of fill and creation of a retaining wall, especially at 6 feet in height in some places. The impact on neighboring lots is not easy to quantify, but they are generally negative but not positive. The impacts of additional water runoff from this property on the surrounding properties should be closely reviewed. In most cases, retaining walls should not be permitted on property boundaries, especially within dense residential areas. The aesthetic impacts on neighboring properties are also substantial as well. It is often left to the neighbor to keep weeds cut and prevent the lower side of the retaining wall from being overgrown with brush, which often is not done. This project also appears to be built with drainage from the roof of the structure dumping onto neighboring properties with non-perforated pipe as well. This should be unacceptable to the city planning board.
Thank you.
They were referring to the east, or the north wall also, right? The poured concrete wall?
Yes.
And the east wall's block, separate blocks.
yes. Okay, if there's no further comments or questions in that regard, then I think I'd open it up to, if there's anybody in the audience that wants to offer public comment.
I'm Marianne Shaughnessy, and this is,
Patrick Johnson.
we, our backyard borders, Mr. Racine's backyard, where the concrete block walls are. I know I've come and spoke before, but we do have continued concerns. I was able to review the third-party review and the comments, and we brought some pictures of kind of what it is looking like now. We have continued concerns because the wall has shifted over the winter like we predicted that it would, and a lot of dirt and rock continued to come through. And it is right on our property line, just about less than an inch away from our property line. Our main concern though, and it has been since September of 2017 when all of this started at the zoning board, is drainage. And we brought that up at the zoning board then, and the comment was never, I guess, addressed back by the applicant about the roof leader and the foundation pipes that are connected to the drain pipe that is under those cement blocks. If the third-party review is requesting that they be removed, they need to be removed, because right now, and we have pictures, that they are connected to his foundation drain, and our backyard is a swamp right now, because water is going through those pipes, just rainwater right now, but soon it will be his gutter water. And it's going down into that pipe that was disturbed during the trenching and during the installation of these concrete block walls. So I've if that was the suggestion from the third party, I think they need to follow that and remove that. These blocked walls shouldn't even be there in the first place. So that's our main concern is drainage. We do have other concerns. There's no conduit pipe. This wall was put on an easement, and MLD allowed them to keep it with the stipulation of a conduit pipe being put in there because of the wires right there. And in his plan, there is no conduit pipe identified at all. I don't know why MLD has the power, I guess, to make that decision and allow them to do construction outside the limits of the code. That's why I thought there was a zoning board and a planning board to make those decisions. So I don't know why MLD is saying it's okay with us that these blocks are there because it is an easement. There shouldn't be anything there. And in the code, it does say an easement should be cleared 20 feet, 10 in each direction. The wall is shifting, and to move on to aesthetics, I guess, his proposed plan is to cover it in pressure-treated wood that in just a year's time is going to split. It's going to continue to shift. There's no foundation for these cement blocks that are shifting, and they'll continue to. I don't know how he plans to maintain it because it's an inch from our property line. I think the wood might even, to be honest, that he's proposing be too thick and go onto our property, but I think with the shifting, it will certainly split. Is he going to stain it the first time and then leave it for us to look at splitting and just the design standards that he's proposing are not consistent with the makeup of our neighborhood. And like in our neighborhood, there are nice stone retaining walls that are maintained by the property owners, and you don't see and shouldn't see cement blocks covered with wood planks with dirt and crushed stone seeping through the bottom from underneath. It's unacceptable, I feel, for any neighborhood. And if he plans to have this as his finished product, I think that Mr. Racine should have to allot money for at least a vinyl privacy fencing for us, so we, not just me, but all of the other neighbors don't have to look at that wall, and so it's safe for my two kids who are going to be running around in the backyard, who, if they go close to the property line, we shouldn't have to worry about splintering or a wall that's not being maintained. But that's my main concerns, and drainage along with these aesthetics. So, I don't know if you say or if we should say, if we have proof of piping, I don't know if we can just share this with the minutes or to see.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a copy of the letter from MLD?
I don't think it was a letter, I think it was an
Thank you,
email.
Okay,
I do have it upstairs, not here.
okay.
Current materials.
It's been referenced by,
It's been referenced, I
two
think it was actually
parties,
a
so-
communication between MLB and Joe, I wanna say originally, is that right?
I'm sorry, when we're talking about the MLD letter,
yes,
we're talking about any comments they had
yes.
in regards to,
No, it
The
was an
actual
email. It was not
email.
an official comment.
It was Joel Chase that went out and looked at it and then sent an email to either Joe or someone regarding
an
the,
email between Joe McMahon and Joel Chase.
Okay.
One keynote change that originally, the transformer in the easterlymost corner, northeast corner, was where we were proposing to get our power from. That has changed. We've actually connected to the pole that's in the southeast corner. MLD was concerned that in order for them to give us power from that transformer, they would have to change out that transformer in order to get there, they had to cut down trees on neighboring property, and knowing of the existing concerns, they opted to feed us from the other pole, not to have to disturb that area, so.
My only concern, Mr. Chairman, is that we have two references to communication from MLD. I believe they are contradicting each other. If we could get some clarification on that, either there's an issue there or there isn't, I think it would be good to at least have clarity to the question.
What is, I guess, comment that there is a concern from MLD,
Yes.
where is that, or when is that,
That was part of the presentation.
what evidence of that, I'm unaware of anything from MLD, I guess that's it.
Well, there
It
was
was-
reference to communication from MLD, and I'd just like to see it if we have.
Back in October, yeah. And it was read into the minutes, I believe, what Joel had emailed Joe. And it, as far as I remember, they said, no issue. But I don't know the details. Thank you.
Am I allowed to share something on that, or no?
I think, ultimately, are there any other further people in the audience that wanna offer any kind of public comment in regard to the application?
So Jim, I was not copied on that email, so I don't have a copy to share.
Okay.
My name's Daryl Bottoms. I live next door to Shaughnessy's on the eastern side. And as the water drains onto their property, I'm next door to them. It levels down into my backyard and the side of my house. And, well, my sump pump runs a lot anyway. Now it runs every minute, okay? It runs a minute later, 60 seconds later, it's on again, and on again, and on again. Wasn't that bad before, okay? You know, to show how it is now, I cut my grass twice, and in my backyard, towards the back, the last 25 yards or so, 20 yards, I mean, I'm just walking in water, almost pushing my lawn, okay? Wasn't that way before. At the last meeting in September, Mr. Brennan, who lives on the northern side next to the Shaughnessy's, he's a contractor, he stood up here, told you guys that within 2 years, that wall of his is gonna fall over onto their property, okay? He knows what he's talking about. I don't. I do know what it looks like already, like this, okay? If you come out there and looked at it, you'd see what I'm talking about. And it's not a block, they're revetments. They're the ugly things you see on the road where they put between, the highways, so people don't, run off the road or whatever, you couldn't call it a wall, I wouldn't even call it a block. It's a revetment, connected to each other. And they're like I said, you just have to look at them. They're up in the air and down and up and down. And I can see where Mr. Brandon was talking about, as that water comes down and loosens those blocks even more, they're just gonna fall over, and they're gonna fall over on their property. Told by a letter, the way I remember it, to remove the blocks, okay, from the building inspector. He was on vacation at the time, Joe, I guess his name is, the guy who's filling in for him, came out there, saw what they did, because they whipped those blocks on there one day, when they were having a meeting with the assistant without telling them what they were doing, and gave them a letter saying, remove those blocks immediately. Joe came back a couple days later, disregard the letter, you don't have to move those blocks at all. I can't understand why one day it was move them, the next day it wasn't. What changed? Joe's opinion? I'm a little frustrated by this, it's been going on now for 2 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other individuals in the audience that'd like to offer public comments?
Can I add to that, or no?
Secondary, yes.
The comment with MLD, it wasn't just for, he wasn't originally supposed to just put a conduit in for his own electric, it's because it's an easement with all of the electric lines going from there. So that's why no matter if he ran his electric from the box in one corner or the pole in the other, the conduit pipe was supposed to be in there regardless, because it's on an easement with everyone's on electric, and if something were to happen under those blocks, then lines would be able to easily be run instead of digging up our land or his blocks or whatever it is, I don't know. I just think there's other things that can be done to make this whole situation better. An approved plan with proper drainage, with pipes that haven't been disturbed, where water can run to where it's supposed to run. He has many options. He can move the blocks back. He can put cedar hedges where they are and have the blocks on the other side so it looks better. There's many things that can be done that can make everybody happy. He can have his yard, he can have his trees, but we shouldn't have to suffer because he's putting blocks in places where they shouldn't be and constructing them however he wants and just placing things wherever he wants, even though it's not allowed in the code.
Thank you,
Thanks.
thank you. So, is there any further public comment? Okay, if not, Rick, there is the, comment.
About Tracy?
Of no comment from the municipal lighting department,
That was our official check with them.
correct? That they reviewed the application, had no comment back in August.
Okay. So third party said drainage is fine, just remove that pipe, essentially, that's what we got back from them, right?
At this point, we had third-party review, which reviewed the drainage. They reviewed the structural integrity of the wall.
Both walls?
Yes, and I believe those were the primary items in the pipe. And their comment back to us was that they recommended removal of the pipe to be abandoned.
Now, is that 4-inch pipe hooked up right now? So water's running through it or not?
I mean, it can be removed, if it needs to be removed, I'm not objecting.
No,
to
I'm just
taking
thinking
it.
about where the water's.
Well, when we're
everyone's-
done, we'll end up, obviously, there'll be a new pipe.
Right,
Yeah, so there'll be a new 6-inch pipe, basically almost the exact same location. Obviously, right now, if you look at the picture, right, it's all sand there, there's no question to that. We issued a stop work order, not, told not to do any more work on that wall. So when we're done, obviously, it will be completed, there'll be fabric, there'll be more stone, et cetera, to help improve the drainage. It was reviewed by a third-party independent, to look at hydraulic calculations and structural stability. I do have MLD's email, the first one, copy of it here from Joel. I don't have the second one, and again, if MLD wants the conduit, obviously we have to dig up the back of the wall to put the new pipe in. If they want a 4-inch pipe, we're not gonna object to that. I mean, it's minimal cost, and we're not gonna object to installing a second conduit for them. But there was this second email after this saying it was no longer necessary, but again, we're not objecting to it, but I guess I would leave that to the electrical experts. And
Right.
If they want it, we have no problem complying with that requirement.
no, I guess my question about is if the existing solid 4-inch pipe is actually connected now and draining water, or if things are not connected yet.
Nothing's,
So I guess my point is, we don't really know how things really look until they're connected. I mean, everyone's saying that the water's
right.
seeping out
Obviously,
now, but
the pipe
obviously
was put in
nothing's hooked up.
currently with the wall, so it wasn't like we had the pipe in the ground and we tore it up to put the wall on, I mean,
Right.
it was, so say it was disturbed or damaged when it's done,
Right.
that was the project. But again, if it needs to come out, we'll take it out, that's not, I'm not gonna.
Can I ask that this be read into the minutes, please?
It's just Joel's part.
I can call him. Get him down here.
Would it be the whole page
The correspondence from Joel,
from Joel?
the last correspondence, yes.
Aaron, per your request, after meeting with Mr. Racine in early August, PMLD will be satisfied with the retaining wall installed within the PMLD right of way, provided the property owner installs a spare 4-inch conduit as indicated in this email chain. Prior to backfilling this installation, will need to be inspected by PMLD personnel. This The spare conduit will be installed within the existing right of way. Please contact me should you require more.
I think there's a lot of value in that statement, and the way that I look at it, we can't authorize or give you permission to install this pipe on the neighboring property. So how would you plan to put it within your property line?
Well, it's within, we place it on the back of the wall, so behind the wall, so it'd be, probably 4 feet off the property line when it's done. It's still within the easement limit, but on our
Yes.
side, so it would not
But it
impact the
is.
neighbor at all to install that extra pipe.
Okay. So ultimately, that pipe would be installed sort of above the 6-inch?
It'll probably, realistically, I'd probably put it below, so it would almost be parallel next to each other, but keep the solid pipe close to the wall, drainage pipe close to the house, so we don't have any conflicts when our roof leaders, et cetera, to connect to the 6-inch pipe.
Okay. And if for some reason you get close to the easement limits, MLD came back, want a lot more easement or anything like that, the
Yeah,
applicant?
I mean, like I said, I know we've had meetings with MLD after that email, where they said it was not necessary, but if the board wants it in for future use, I'm not gonna argue with over minimal cost extra.
Okay. Okay. And then you agree to the pipe removal that GPI has recommended?
Correct.
Once again, stability of the wall and drainage has been reviewed by our third-party consultant, and seems to have worked through, or you seem to have worked through that with them to something that's
Yes.
acceptable. I guess the last item is the wall aesthetics.
Aesthetics.
I don't know, does the board have any comments, questions about wall aesthetics? The proposal right now is that we've seen the concrete blocks in place, they're proposing to wrap that, correct?
For lack of, yes, exactly, that we propose to install a, vertical pressure treated, 5-quarter material on the front of the wall and also on top of the wall, so it look like a wooden fence basically when it's done.
Plan on doing any kind of treatment on that, or is it just
Well,
gonna
we'll
be?
stain it before we install it, no question to that, there were renderings provided, I think, from the landscape architect, showing with the hedges and everything else, so. When it's done, in our mind, is, looks like a neighboring fence with a hedgerow behind it, obviously, if, say, but, if they want to add additional landscaping, then they're free to plant additional plantings on their property if.
Okay.
Looking at our house, I guess.
Okay. I don't know, does the board have any questions? Further comments?
We've heard it several times. I mean, I don't have any additional questions.
Okay.
I think we really need to consider, as planners, our job is to think ahead about the future of our community and what the precedent of this decision sets. I don't know of another place where we've got similar building materials in a residential area. And I don't think that we wanna go through this process in the future. And I don't see the use of the blocks as harmonious materials with the residential neighborhood, which is why we don't have them in other places. It's in our purview to review the harmonious nature of building and architectural materials and design when we consider a project. And in this case, I think this is not a precedent that I would like to set. As a planner, I also think that our job is not only to consider site plan review, but also kind of the character and relationships of our community. And this seems to have been pretty divisive. And there are ways to manage this so that we don't go through it again. And the obvious one to me is that the wall needs to come out and be replaced with something that is more harmonious with the neighborhood.
I think last time we were in October, the idea of moving the block wall back a couple feet and putting plantings on Racine's property
In
was
front
an
of the
option
wall?
in front of the wall. So you're looking at the planting or the shrubs, not necessarily the block. That was an option too.
Okay.
And I think that the whole question calls for design review of, in us requesting the start of standards being developed to avoid this question. I understand what Kurt's saying. Lacking design review standards at this point really makes it difficult for us to apply design review standards. So I'm caught in between on the whole issue with respect to design.
Well, and I think what initially happened was, it wasn't, the blocks weren't in the initial building permit sent to zoning. Zoning saw it, issued a stop work order and said, go to planning.
The blocks were there when the codes officer saw it, correct? That's what cost.
So then it got pushed to us,
Yeah,
for
okay,
us to make a
all right.
decision, which
I
we
wanted
don't
to confirm
normally,
that chronology of that, yeah.
we don't normally, that's where we don't
That's
normally
right.
see this, because we don't normally make aesthetic.
Yeah, the
decisions,
blocks were
right?
put down without any pre-approval of any kind, right?
And
I was confirming this,
Well,
that's a
no,
big
yeah, and
catch.
Zoning gave them the choice to remove the blocks or go to planning.
My understanding is that and the applicant can confirm this or not, is that the applicant had the option of either removing them, going through an enforcement action, or coming to the planning board to seek site plan approval. Is that?
Right, in talking to the code officer confirming, I think there was actually an email from Joe explaining that there was a stop work order, and it was remove the walls immediately, and you can't proceed any further. But he put a caveat there, or seek planning board approval to leave it as is. And that's what started this whole process of us coming through. And then I kinda echo, Rick's comments, when it talks about retaining wall defenses, so we constructed masonry, concrete, or pressure treated, other similar materials. There are no specific design requirements within the ordinance. So to say, I understand that, we could actually build a 3-foot wall, come in 3 feet, step up 3 feet, all out of concrete, and be 100% compliance with the code.
Thanks.
So there is not the code that talks, that says specifically, we could paint our house pink. I mean, there are, in other ordinances, there are architectural guidelines. The city of West does not have those guidelines when it comes to the situation. So, my point being is, I understand your concerns, and I understand as a planner moving forward, that is something that would be a recommendation to the common council to adopt additional zoning requirements. But you as a board are governed by your ordinance.
Which allows us to make decisions about whether or not materials
Even-
are harmonious
did
with
you
the
put
nature of
this-
the community.
And usually we do make those
Code
decisions
360,
before it
put that
gets
on-
built.
That's right, they would be in a site plan.
Planners
and
note
make those decisions
for this
at
one?
the time.
We didn't read that in, does that need to be read in?
I did read yeah, that was the 4-inch drain pipe.
No, but below that, there's something about the planning board has some authority over aesthetics.
Yeah,
That's what I think
I
you're
don't
referring
have
to.
that additional
So the
section. I can read it
so-
in.
the location, so the ordinance reads, the location, general massing, and character of building elements shall be organized to create a harmonious continuity of exterior spaces and an integrated overall site design. I won't editorialize as I read these, I'll wait. The design of individual buildings shall be scaled and proportioned to normally accepted design standards, with proper consideration given to their relationships to adjacent buildings, both existing and proposed, in terms of height, bulk, light, air, usable space, access, and off-street parking. 3. Building materials shall be selected for durability, harmonious relationships, and, where appropriate, continuity of treatment with neighboring structures. 4, the treatment of the side and rear facings of new buildings shall be consistent with the treatment given their street frontage. 5, building appurtenances and accessory structures shall receive architectural treatment consistent with that of the principal buildings. In this case, I think that number 1, we don't have harmonious continuity with the neighborhood. Number 3, we don't have continuity of treatment with neighboring structures, in that there are other retaining walls on this site of different material and construction design standards, architectural standards. Number 4, the treatment of the side and rear facing of new buildings shall be consistent with the treatment given their street frontage. I don't think that if there were a wall needed on the front of this home, that these materials would be used. Number 5, building appurtenances and accessory structures shall receive architectural treatment consistent with that of the principal buildings. So this is a newly constructed home with high quality architectural and engineering design, and then a kind of ad hoc wall placed in the backyard. I think any solution that dresses up the wall is kind of, lipstick on a pig, and what we can't promise is that the next applicant will do as nice a job as putting lipstick on that pig as this applicant might. And it will just degrade over time with more applicants doing a similar thing.
Be very clear that under the ordinance, you do not need site plan approval to build a wall. So, I agree.
I appreciate your comment on discussing the harmonious nature of the materials on the site, and that's what we're discussing here.
And that's why the applicant's willing to go above and beyond, but if the site plan is denied, the
Chairperson,
applicant.
is this discussion between the board or between the board and the audience at this point?
Well, at this point, we probably should limit comment until the board has.
Thank you.
So, Kurt, I think you've
Made my position
generally
clear.
made your position clear. Rick, I think you've generally outlined concern with the way our ordinance is written, and
Exactly.
what's how far we can take that authority, I guess you could say.
I guess after listening to all the argument, I'll be able to make a more clear decision.
Yep. Derek?
Well, I think trying to make everyone work together, moving the wall and putting the shrubs in front of the wall is a legitimate solution, instead of just saying remove the wall altogether, because it sounds like that would be okay to some of the neighbors. And if they're gonna have to dig things up anyway, is it that much cost to move things?
Okay.
I don't know, I think last time, that's the way I kinda left it last time. It felt like, is there more expense in just taking the whole thing out, which is entirely up to the board to do, or working with everyone to move it back, because it doesn't seem that the covering it with wood is acceptable.
Okay. John?
I agree with Derek, I agree with Kurt, yeah. We're trying to make something better here, and this is just, it's almost impossible to work on this as it is now with that existing block wall.
And I guess I would also say if, we have a third-party review that suggests pulling out the drainage pipe, and I think we need to, if we're considering not doing that, then we need to think about why we request third-party reviews.
Right.
And the precedent that it sets if we then don't implement their suggestions. If that pipe is coming out, replace the wall when the pipe comes out, and this conversation goes away, right? I mean, we solve a problem.
Well, yeah, we didn't even talk about,
Okay.
are we gonna agree with having that pipe removed or not?
I guess, my feeling is the pipe needs to be removed. I mean,
Agreed.
That's what our
Agreed.
third-party, review indicated. It should be removed in full.
Can the wall even remain while doing that?
I think that the applicants presented that there may be questions about that,
So if we're already at the point of having to
So-
move the wall, let's move it back and put the shrubs in.
You know, with that said, that's one option. Does the board feel generally confident with that option, or do you think there's,
I think we're stuck with a decision that we wouldn't normally have to make, and it's, so we might as well come to some
okay,
resolution that works.
I mean, or
I
does,
prefer a design, seeing a design that we approve for that wall, rather than keeping the current wall, moving it back and dressing it up. I don't think sets a precedent that we wanna set. I understand the complication of doing it fully, but
okay. Rick, what's your, before we open up further, what's your,
I think the goal of this board is, as you walk away, are you walking away with making the situation a betterment to the neighborhood and to the community? And honestly, look at the blocks, and I can't say that. If they had a more structural component to it, then I don't think there would be a need to decorate it at the property line. Which leads to the next, series of questions is there a structural component to this wall? Does it necessitate blocks of that dimension?
The purpose of the wall was to help with the site grading. The original proposal to the stage did not have a wall, it basically had it all slope. If the board is unwilling to look at the wall, I'll be perfectly honest with you, we will not put a hedge, we will not put anything. There's no reason to go to that, the conditions that you place as far as putting a hedge, doing all this extra work, we won't do anything if we're not allowed to leave the block wall. So, we'll comply with the zoning ordinance and look at other options, whether it's a 3-foot concrete wall, which is permitted by the ordinance without site plan review, and we'll just do a 3-foot poured concrete wall with no edge. Because if we have to pay the cost to remove it, there'll be less money available for beautification later.
Essentially though, without a block wall, you can't just grade it down, it's too steep.
Well,
We need
obviously
something-
that moves the grading closer to the house, so, it eliminates the usefulness of the backyard, so the applicant is looking to achieve a more usable backyard. So, those are, so the wall's there, we have that now. If the board wanted it beautified, we looked at options to improve it, as far as landscaping and wrapping it. Obviously, if the board's not satisfied with those concerns, then we'll seek other available options that comply with the ordinance.
so rather than have our board be bullied and threatened with options.
I guess it's perfect.
Well-
Make a motion then.
So
well,
then I guess then my recommendation would be that we see some real alternatives to the wall. Board.
so ultimately, I guess, is that the board's determination that, we're really not happy with the current presentation or the current application, we'd like to see alternatives?
And if we don't come to a decision, then does the original stop work order go back into effect?
Yeah, this is one of the risks of constructing something without a proper permit in place.
Okay. So at this time, unless I have a motion for the application as presented from someone,
So I'll make a motion.
well, as presented, or do we give the recommendation to the applicant that we really need more alternatives? You wanna take, I guess,
Would I not make a motion to suggest that?
I guess the question is to the applicant, do you want the application as presented to be voted on today? Or do you want to take the recommendation of the board that we really need to see some further alternatives and consider it?
The applicant's, excuse me, the applicant's asked for a few minutes to discuss it. Whether the board's willing to move on the next project, or if we want to take a 5-minute recess.
Or can we take a recess on that?
You can table the motions, or table the application,
Until the end of the agenda?
until it's brought back onto the table.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you feel comfortable tabling the application until the, I think it's fair until the end of the agenda.
Yeah,
If they wanna wait.
Absolutely.
Would it be fair to open the comment session back up to those that wanted to speak again? We allowed the applicant to,
I think at this point, we would table it and we'll open it back up at the end.
when we resume.
Once we've heard what the response is from the applicant. Is that fair?
I think it's fair,
Okay.
as long as everyone
Yep, that's,
has the same opportunity, then it's fair.
okay, so we,
Right.
so do you have a
Limited.
motion to table the application?
Make a motion to table until the end of the meeting.
Yep.
So that the applicant can discuss and make a decision.
Okay, do you have a second?
Second.
Yeah.
Second, roll call?
James Sandella,
Yes.
John Rosa.
Yes.
Derek Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Richard Perry,
Yes.
Kurt Burbidge.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, moving on to new business. This is the third item, planning board application number 2019-08. We'll have to decide that next month. Yeah. So, 2019-08, 57 Court Street. Project description is request to replace an existing building sign with a new 8-foot by 18-inch sign. Applicant is Mark Snyder. Plan preparer is Tara Powers.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the planning board, and I'm happy to be here before you. I have been a tenant for many years at 57 Court Street. First of Dr. Ledoux, who passed away, and then of his son Winslow, who sadly passed away in January of this year. When I moved in back in the late 90s, I got a permit for a sign, and that has been up for 20 some odd years. And it went from Schneider and Alley to Schneider and Palzik, and now I am here just as Mark Schneider. And I've hired the very prominent local sign maker, Casey Ryder, who is here. And you may know Casey. She has done beautiful hand-carved signs all over the city, for the county, for buildings. The building next to mine, across the street, has her signs, and they're, very beautiful handmade signs that do blend in with our historical neighborhood. And actually, the new sign that KC is working on is much prettier and much more harmonious than the previous 6x4 sign. But we wanted to go through this process and do it correctly. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, but I think this sign is actually a big improvement for my building and for my neighborhood and for the city.
When did you purchase the property?
Probably about 2 years and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I kept up the original, the Schneider and Palzik sign, and then recently, a few months ago, Drew put up a temporary sign, and then we learned from Tara that we needed to come here and get approval, and that's why we're here. Any questions?
The make of the sign? Is it like a wood carved sign? Is it a?
Yeah, we have a picture of it. Did you see the picture?
I do.
It's carved, it's a synthetic material, it's like wood-like.
It's a DHU, yeah, it's a hand-carved sign,
Mhm.
and treated with 23 karat gold leaf for the name.
Okay. I think that's similar to other signs you've
Yes,
produced for this area.
absolutely.
Yes.
It will probably outlast me.
And me,
Is there any other questions from the board?
Just to go over the answers on the secret,
Okay. If there's
when you're
no-
ready.
Well.
Essentially,
there's
is this just approval of a sign because it's in a historic district?
Yes, because it's
Correct.
attached to a historic building.
But it's
in a
not
historic
outside
district.
of the size of a sign or anything
No.
like that? Okay.
I guess, I'll ask, is there anybody in the public that has comment in regards to this application? Okay, if not, then, I guess our next step would be to review the seeker.
Yes, page 2 of 13, question C1. Are we going to change a plan, local law, ordinance, or et cetera? And you've got yes, the answer should be no. This is a favorite wrong answer that we hit a lot. So C1 is, the answer is no. On page 3 of 13, what's the zoning classification, including any applicable overlay district? Well, historic residential zoning is correct, okay? But it's also the Court Street Historic District, so I think that would qualify as an overlay perhaps, or whatever, but it mentions two different things that you fall under. Otherwise, thank you for being here. I'm glad Casey is catching this and telling people, hey, you need to go in front of the planning board for a sign, and need a sign permit. I think all these other things, answers in terms of water, or parking and use, and none of this changes, there is no change.
This will not change the drainage at all.
No, no.
There you go.
And actually, it seems to be a smaller sign, I think, than your original sign.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's nice. And we do have the Chris report, and of course, it looks markedly different, as we know, back in 1978 than it does now, but that's another story. It looks very nice now. I like the blue paint's a little bright, but I think it still looks really good.
Mm,
Thank you.
I'm personally very pleased with the sign and the sign application.
looks nice.
Thank you, Casey.
Okay.
So, I would make a motion that we find no adverse environmental impact, and the changes that I have mentioned would be added to the
Secret.
seeker form.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Marissa, second by John.
Mm-hmm.
Can I have a roll call, please?
James Abdullah,
Yes.
Jonathan Moser,
Yes.
Marissa Gilbert,
Yes,
Eric Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Richard Perry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we have a application to consider. Do I have a motion for this application?
Mark, not
he's running out the door.
Make a
We
motion,
just have one more.
make a motion to approve, the sign as proposed and as presented here.
I'll second that.
I'll second that as well.
Okay.
Okay. Motion by John, second by Marissa, and if, roll call?
James Abdullah,
Yes.
Jonathan Moser,
Yes.
Marissa Gilbert,
Yes,
Eric Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Richard Perry.
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you.
Nice to see everybody agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next, application is planning board application number 2019-0961 Beekman Street. This is a request to construct a 70,350 square foot building addition and create additional parking. Applicant is the Vials Home LLC, plan preparer is Vials Home LLC. I will have to recuse myself from this application, and I'm on the board of the Vials Home.
Kurt,
Kurt, coming
Bring him
back.
ready.
Yes.
Hi there.
How are you?
Good. Good evening. My name is Eli Schwartzberg. This is my wife, and we live, well, we're not doing public comment, so we don't need to say where we live, I don't think, unless you would like us to.
It's okay.
Thank you for having us here tonight. We appreciate
very
you
good.
reviewing our plan.
Okay. Perhaps you'd like to tell us a little bit about this project. It looks quite sizable.
Sure, I'd be happy to. For those of you who don't know us, can I just tell you a little bit about us? Or just,
Sure, go ahead.
We own and operate the Champlain Valley Senior Community in Willsboro, which, for those who are not familiar with it, it's an abandoned 45,000 square foot building that was abandoned in 2001, boarded up, flooding floors. It was slated to be torn down and just be an eyesore for the Willsboro community. And my wife and I, we did a historic renovation. We put the building on the National Register of Historic Places. We created a 81-bed assisted living and secure memory care community. We turned the basketball court into a dining room with chandeliers. We kept all the murals. We kept all the original plaster walls, original woodwork. All the classrooms were turned into assisted living units, but we kept the 8-foot-high windows, the 12-foot-high ceilings. And so at the end of the day, we were able to do something which was really challenging, which is take a building designed for school kids and make it seamless for elderly. And it turned out really well. It opened in 2013, and my wife and I are on site. We manage all the staff. We are hands-on operators. I also have a background in development that I used to do before I became an operator of assisted living. And we really enjoy what we do and helping the senior population. The Vilas home is something that we've been talking to the board about for some time, and it's an incredibly beautiful Victorian-era historic building. And there's a reason why we chose this, is because I'm not interested in, I'm not so much attracted to just finding a vacant piece of land and putting up another assisted living. I'm attracted to the historical piece. I really feel that the Vilas home, our goal is to really showcase the historic building. As part of this addition, once this is done, we're planning to do a historic renovation of the current Vilas home. There are issues with that building that don't really make it very marketable for the current time. It doesn't all have the bathrooms for the rooms. They're all very small. And one of the things, part of the historic renovation, not that we're asking you guys to look at now, but would be to add bathrooms and do it in a sensitive way where this project will showcase the historical building, and the goal is for the addition to be in the back and to be part of the elegance, but not be the showpiece. My goal at the end of the day is for people to want to live in the Vilas home, the historical building, more than the addition, even though the addition will be great because the Vilas home will be is such a beautiful building. Regards to this plan, I didn't expect to be at the planning board so soon. The building I have is very blocky. It's an L. My end goal is not to just build a building that looks exactly like that. The reason why it is like that is because we were just looking for zoning board approval just to kind of work out the setbacks, which we are within, building heights, parking and things like that. And when we talked to the zoning board and the building official, being in the historic district, they said that the planning board would need to be lead agency. So we're here, to be quite honest, I feel a little premature, but it's just part of the process, which I think is perfectly fine. But we're looking to get our seeker to leading agency to the other agencies so that they can give us any comments, including SHPO, who we work really well with, and then seeing how the process goes, get the zoning, and then work with you guys and also the community to make this addition something that, at the end of the day, I want it to be something that is a real treasure for the city, something that is brings the Vilas home into the current time, and most importantly, something that will not only be aesthetically nice, but something that will serve our community. Our community in Willsboro is full. There's a lot of nursing homes are full. There's a real need for senior care, but the reason why we've been successful is because we have something called enhanced assisted living, which is in between assisted living and nursing home. So what we do for people, for a lot less money than a nursing home, we're able to give them a really nice, dignified environment without, and give people like insulin or two-person transfers, not to get into the details, but things that people are normally a lot of care are socially appropriate for assisted living but end up in a nursing home environment. So we have an area where we're able to take a segment of the population and keep them in a nice home outside of what everyone doesn't like of the nursing home. And that's what we're looking to add here. It's going to be memory care. There's only 20 beds in Clinton County. It's a real severe need for memory care, and we'll be adding memory care and also enhanced assisted living to really support people in the city of Plattsburgh. So again, thanks for having us, and I really welcome your guys' feedback. I know it'll be an ongoing process, and also the feedback of neighbors and the public, and put everyone's head together to make sure that at the end of the day, it's something that every stakeholder is proud of. So.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
It's
you're
very,
welcome.
very comprehensive, appreciate it. Okay. So, did we wanna go over the seeker first, take a look at that first?
Well, if we need to, we can't really make a motion or
Yeah.
anything on it. We
No,
can look
but
at it,
To look
but
at it and find out if
we
we have
can
any.
make a motion to ask for lead agency status.
Yes, okay. I just wanted to make sure that we had something that was competent here. I think we're in pretty good shape.
How many memory care beds will you be offering?
It's not
Same
defined
question.
yet, but I would like to be up to 50. So probably minimum of 25, but it could be as high as 50. Memory care, the design is you never want to go over more than 25 people in one unit. So, basically, if you do one, you do 25. If you do two, and one of the nice things that we could do is sort of a high-level memory care and a low-level memory care. I know that might not mean a lot to a lot of people, but it would basically provide care for people who are very long with Alzheimer's versus people who are more mobile. So basically, it would be 25 or 50. It could end up being 18 and 18. You basically want to be between 18 and 25 to provide the support of a communal living space, but not being too big or too small with the high staffing to cover people that need to be taken care of.
Now, I'm sure you're, of Lake Forest and Pine Harbor.
Yeah, of course,
Do they
yeah.
have either one of these, enhanced assisted living or memory care?
They do not. So just to put it in relation, Lake Forest is independent with services.
Okay.
There's no license. License is a really big deal. It's very strict oversight, and it's for a good reason. The next level is assisted living, which is Pine Harbor, and memory care. And then the next level after that is what we're doing, which is assisted living, memory care, which is the same as Pine Harbor, but enhanced assisted living. So the nice thing about enhanced assisted living is that you can be in assisted living, and let's just say you go to the hospital and you need help transferred just for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
If you're in regular assisted living, go to the nursing home. We're not allowed, we don't have CNAs to transfer you. In our building, come back, for 2 weeks, you can get the care right in your room, and then you come off of it. So it's not a completely different license. It is a different license, but it's basically you float between the two, and it allows people to have a wider spectrum of care as they need it, and it's flexible. And it's one of the best things that they did with Department of Health, and it's been really successful.
And currently, Vilas Home is, they're not tax exempt as far as real estate taxes.
They pay taxes.
Will this change with the new building?
No, we will pay taxes as well. Yeah, and this will be great for the tax base. I mean, this addition, obviously, that's only one factor, but it'll create a lot of jobs, and it will add to the tax base for sure, which I know is important in the city, because there's a lot of, the hospital and things like that. I know there's a dynamic in the cities but I know that doesn't really have much bearing on your decision.
Right, no,
But yeah, it is, it will
knowing
be
the way
taxable.
they sit now.
Yeah.
And either one of these types of memory care or enhanced assisted living, do you do that in Willsboro?
Yeah, we do. So it's basically we're doing exactly what we have in Willsboro. The thing that my wife and I realized is that everyone in our building is from Plattsburgh. And a lot of people, not everybody.
In Willsboro, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, so what we have going on, there's no supply for this there's very little supply for this in Plattsburgh. So everybody's driving 30 minutes, and we pull from Tupper Lake, Saranac Lake,
Right.
Lake Placid. Ticonderoga, Plattsburgh, and, you know, one of the most important things, you know, we're very happy we renovated the Willsboro School. It turned out to be an incredible success. The only thing we'd do differently, and what we've said in the past, is we would be next to the hospital and we'd be in Plattsburgh. So, you know, in a historic building, you know, it gives me a lot of pride, obviously the social impact that I can have on seniors, but also the historic piece, it really gets me excited and like to be creative with. So it is just like Willsboro. It's exactly what we're doing now, and there's a lot of need in the area, and it's just going to grow. So we're looking to bring it to Plattsburgh, where most of the demand is for it.
You're planning to go to the zoning board to request some variances here?
Yes.
Yes, okay. That's part of, we need to determine lead agency status for who's gonna have that right now. Typically, it can be the planning board, it can be the zoning board in this case, you know?
Yeah, I think they
they-
deferred to you guys
They
at the
did?
last meeting
Okay,
to be lead agency. And the reason why, and, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason is because since it's in a historic district,
correct.
you guys become lead agency. If it wasn't in historic district, I believe it would go zoning board and then it would get to you guys. But since it's in historic, they want you guys to be,
Sounds consistent.
you know, the lead agency at it. And then, you know, I do need to, you know, talk to Eva some more and work out logistics. But what the goal is to, you know, the problem with the building currently is that when I have zoning approval, I know what my boundaries are and what my heights are, things like that. So for the planning board, for me to tell my architects to, you know, do the footprint, like this box here is really stay within for the architect. So to tell the architects to do a really nice footprint, to do nice elevations, to have a civil engineer do my stormwater, my drainage, I kind of need to know where my parking is and know what my boundaries are, and that's why zoning is normally first, and then I would come to the planning board with more information. So, you know, I'm hoping that I will be able to get some further direction and get the variances approved. And then I look forward to presenting you guys with some really nice elevations and some footprints and really putting thought into traffic patterns, making sure that the seniors have really good access to sidewalks to get off property. Also making sure that, you know, on one side here, on the Cornelia side, there's gonna be a dining room. I really want, that's got nice southern exposure. I want to have a spill out area for the seniors to have, you know, to kind of connect to the people driving by, be part of the community in that way, but also have a nice area. It's really important that we have like good outdoor areas, really good green spaces, because at the end of the day, you know, that's what's important. If you can get people outside, even if it's for 20 minutes, it makes a huge difference in their quality of life, especially dementia. People with dementia, they, you know, their senses still work, you know, even though other things don't. So the outside space is important, and you know, knowing the boundaries of the building will allow me to kind of define the site plan more until we get to an approval and you guys can have more information on it.
So essentially, we just have to decide if we're lead agency or not, and then
It says here,
And then go to
Clinton
zoning for
County
any
Planning, you've
variances.
already gone before Clinton County Planning?
When I submitted plans, they gave plans to Clinton County. I think they reviewed it, they gave a letter. In the letter, they said that they would prefer to not have a road coming off to Cornelia Street.
Okay.
It's something I wanna talk to you
You got
guys
that?
about.
Okay.
What the plan doesn't say is that it's a one-way road and it's a right turn only.
Okay.
You know, I want to make a site plan that flows really well for the long term. So we may need to go back and talk to them about it, or we may redesign it and find something that works really well without going on to Cornelia. It's
That's
really
very good, yeah.
preliminary.
I just wanted to get a handle on if they had any mentions, words, or anything on lead agency status, but I was
They didn't.
assuming they would not.
Yeah.
Yes, so with that, can I
Can we have
motion, make a motion
I'm
to,
just wondering, did the zoning, have any idea, did the zoning board sort of do a preemptive strike and say, we voluntarily ahead of time cede because we haven't asked them yet.
Right, we
We
have.
haven't
Right.
requested of
Or
them.
have they,
I don't have it in writing, but I
Yeah.
believe they mentioned that they did.
we can
vote
work
to
on
have-
these variances,
Okay.
I have
something
not
like,
received anything in writing from them.
Okay,
okay.
They voted at their meeting to ask you, I believe they voted at their meeting we were at last week to make you guys lead agency.
Okay.
And I don't know if they formally requested how
Yeah.
that works, but that
Okay.
was the thought.
I haven't seen your full list of variance needs, but one thing that I do recognize is that this creates what's called a through lot, where you can drive from one street and exit onto another street. And this actually has exiting capacity on 3 streets.
Mr. Chairman, can I interrupt for a moment? It might be helpful if you guys, I believe it's in your packets, the county comments. They might not have been in time.
No.
I didn't
No.
see- I
The
didn't
county
see
did
it.
comment, not on this application, this action, they commented on the variance action.
Mhm.
They declined to have the driveway entrance on, I mean, that is a stipulation of the county.
So that's going away, okay, very good,
That is a stipulation, I mean, the
okay,
zoning board could override it,
Yeah.
super majority, right?
right.
if the zoning
If
board
they
does.
chose to.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So that being the case, the first and foremost item that we do need to consider is lead agency status. So can I have a motion to propose that planning board be lead agent on this
I
matter?
would propose that we request lead agency status and
Very
make
good.
sure it's been clarified with all other involved agencies.
Okay, second that by Mr. Rick, okay.
I'm sorry.
Rick Perry?
Call, John Mills,
Yes?
Melissa Gilbert,
Yes,
Derek Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Richard Berry,
Yes.
Kurt Burbidge.
Yes.
Okay, with that being said, and us moving in that direction, now we can take a look at the seeker. Anybody have any comments on that or anything? Have you made review on that?
Well, without the site plan, I mean, it sounds like the site plan is still changing quite a bit.
yes, I don't.
Yeah, it
So-
is preliminary, yep.
Yeah.
The
so-
one that we have before us right now is preliminary. Yeah,
Well,
gotta
I
get
would
your
say, I
handle.
would say just the building footprint,
I know.
I wouldn't say, it's,
More.
I wouldn't say it's completely preliminary, but to get to like a final approval where we have, swales, storm sewer, an architectural building, we'll have ins and outs of it. So I don't think the building location will change. I feel that I'm open to it if I hear good suggestions. But we put a lot of thought in, connecting the building to the current building, and also running it behind the building, away from the neighbors on University. And so I don't think the site is going to change much, but it would mainly, it could possibly change depending on, what the zoning board, what their feedback is. But, it's not final, but it is a draft, to present at the first meeting here.
So my feeling is the project seems fantastic, and we appreciate the presentation. But we can't
Can't do
go
anything.
forward very far
No.
on the seeker
Because we're
without-
very preliminary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Very good.
I'm gonna question, you keep saying it's a historic district, but my brain is telling me that's not, you are in a building on the register, but I don't think it's an actual district.
I believe if you look at the map, it's outside of the district, but it's colored, so I think they sort of said, this is our district and we're also adding this, is my
Oh,
understanding. It's
okay.
not part of if you look at the map in the building department
I mean, it could
downstairs.
be, in theory, it could be,
Historic building, it's not a
it-
historic.
yeah, it's not a
historic
district, no, it's not a
Okay, so it's
district.
just a
The
historic
nearest
building.
district is the
Okay.
Court Street district, which ends right there at Beekman at the top
Okay,
of
then I
Court Street.
didn't
So,
realize that.
but you still have this kind of limitation,
Yeah.
so,
Because it's a historic
historic
register.
register property, yeah, so it's
So
the
we
same
should still
effect.
be lead agency.
So your answer's in here, anytime it asks about, are you in a district, the answer's no,
Okay.
you're not in a district. But when it says later on, like page, I don't know, 13 or wherever it talks about, so you might make a few changes, into your seeker. Page 13 of 13, does it contain or is it contiguous to a building or whatever on the National Register? Yeah. And actually, they have one box that you check whether you're a historic building or a district, so either way, it's the right answer, okay? and we've got the Chris
It's
Chris
all here,
report,
right.
we're good. And what I had requested earlier, I don't think you were there in the pre-meeting, I thought perhaps we should take out and take a quick look at the, John, not tonight, but as part of what we look at, the John McKenna work that did the, addition that happened,
Yes.
15 years ago, I don't remember.
Yeah.
The first edition, the first modern edition
Yeah, sure.
that ever
Yeah.
went onto that building. We should probably look at what standards we were using for that, for consistency.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
those plans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
And
but,
All right.
but I think what you needed from us was that vote tonight.
For lead
So-
agency, so with
yeah,
that.
lead agency, so what my, the way that it was explained is that, and we can have a conversation, I just, to get the seeker to the agencies, would allow the zoning board, I mean, the goal here, however we get there and however you can help me,
Okay.
in my mind, I really want to make it so the zoning board can hear this and start making decisions, because once they decide on the perimeters of the site, then it really allows me to kind of do a bunch of work for you guys and allow
Work it
you
out.
guys to dig in deep. So I want to get them to sign off on the zoning so that I can give you guys something that you can really dig into. And so I don't know what's necessary to be able to get them to be able to hear the zoning. If it's just being lead agency, that's great, but
Yep.
are you able to send it for seeker, to the other agencies, like, for seeker review, so they can have 30 days to respond?
You will want, SHPO will be one of them.
Okay,
and
so
you'll
that's
wanna
something that
include
you,
that,
okay. Yeah, that's my understanding, so
Yeah,
that sounds
you're on-
wonderful.
You're on your way right now.
Okay,
To the
perfect.
next step, I think.
Yeah, I just
and,
wanted to make sure it wasn't
I would-
miscommunicating or we were on the same page, but that's great, thank you.
Yeah, so I guess we'll see you next meeting or the meeting after that, whichever your status brings you to the table with
Sure.
your plans and everything, and work with the zoning board on their variances that you would like,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, I will, and I
So-
look forward to working with you guys.
Yeah,
It'll be an
well,
exciting project.
you did a hell of a job down at Willsboro. I mean,
Yeah,
I
thanks.
go fishing down there all the time to the Phuket
Yeah.
and, go by that,
It's
what
a
you
really,
did. That
special
place was
place.
falling apart, so now it's beautiful,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
it's very rewarding, and we're looking to take what we learned and
Very good.
bring it to an incredible piece of property in Plattsburgh.
Yeah.
It's a great
I just
opportunity.
want to add something. I know we're getting ahead of things, but just to give you my thoughts now. The first thing I noticed when I looked at this was that I realized you're putting the majority of the new building in the back, but you're still cutting off half of the building on that one side on Cornelia Street. I mean, being able to see the original Vilas home.
Mhm.
So I didn't know if there's ways, while you're working on this, to reconfigure, maybe proportioning more of the building in the back, so it's not covering up. From Cornelia, from the corner,
Yeah.
looking at
Cut
that.
Cut this part off so that you can still see it from Cornelia.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, you're talking about this kind of site,
Yeah.
driving down here to be able to look there.
Right.
So, that's a great point, and, originally, I was very much, for just doing like a straight building.
Yeah.
Or even coming back here.
Ellen.
So, the reason why I did that is because it's really important with old buildings that you don't mess up the entrance. Because with old buildings, if you look at some additions that are done poorly, they make a new entrance, and then how the original architect designed the historic building, it kind of throws off the flow of the building, and people are confused, if that makes sense. To take a step back, if I had done this addition personally, I would have used the historic entrance that was the original Vilas home, not, in the front porch. I'm not casting judgment on the architect who put it where, the new entrance where it is, but it's confusing. If you go in the front door, you go in the side door. So they sort of messed it up once, okay, in my opinion. I don't want to mess it up a third time, and so what I did here is you pull up to a porte cochere, you get out, you walk into the front desk, and immediately the elevators to go in the historic building are right there. There's no inconvenience to get to the first, second, or third floor, or you go into the new building. If you put it straight line over there, what happens is there's an inconvenience to go in the historical building. And my goal of making the Vilas home the showcase of this long term, where people want to live in the historic building versus the new building, you have to make sure it's flows right and it has a good aesthetic for people pulling up, and it's not an inconvenience for an old person. If they need to walk 200 feet to get to the dining room, they're not gonna wanna live in the historic building, but if that dining room is closest to, you come down the elevator of the historic building into the entrance and there's a dining room, now you're the first one at lunch. Okay? So it comes down to being first at lunch, and that's why it's designed like that. So I agree with you, but the main angle that I think is most important, this building starts behind the historic building. So it starts with the addition, okay? So I'm not going in front of the original brick as far as towards Beekman Street. The most important view, in my opinion, is driving, up Cornelia, Beekman, that front porch, the front view of that. Looking on the other angle, yes, it's nice, but you're really looking at the addition done in the 90s. It's not as nice. So you do lose a little, but you gain a lot by, at the end of the day, making sure you preserve that historical building and making it the centerpiece. And but I am open to brainstorming. Maybe it could meet somewhere in the middle. It doesn't have to be like this at the end of the day. So
Well, and how the
I think
new
it's a good
building's gonna
comment.
look too. I'm
yeah,
sure
and it's
that-
something
that's
I've
gonna
thought
play
about.
into
So
it.
we can continue to kind of
Yeah, and
turn
we're
through it and see if we can make it even better.
a ways from there, so.
Yeah. So
Very good. We look
Okay.
forward to working with you.
yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
I still don't think the secret's gonna change that much, but. See ya. Right. That's good, yes. That's good.
Okay, moving backwards for one moment back to the planning board
Circle Grove?
application 2018-13 for 3 Circle Grove.
Okay.
I believe the applicant
Maybe.
is looking for, request a table for tonight.
So it's already on the table, so then just take no action and it stays on the table.
It just stays on table? Okay,
It-
I'll have to
it's-
do anything.
You can stay at the table.
Yeah, okay.
Just so we're clear, is there any time frame with that, or is it
It
just,
stays on the table, so it'll remain on the agenda until it's either acted upon or withdrawn.
so then there's no,
It stays on the agenda.
stays on?
Table is on the agenda, and the next meeting will automatically appear.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay. Moving on to the last application for tonight, is this,
Just for the residents of that
okay, yep.
community, might be a good idea just to explain to them what just happened.
Okay, so that application was tabled, by the board, and it just remains tabled until it returns?
There's no time limit, like 2 years and counting?
Stays on the agenda until it's acted upon.
At this point, it's tabled until it's acted upon. I don't think we can comment in regards to any of the other
Right.
actions from other departments. That's something I think you know,
I
we'd
just
have to,
didn't know if it had to be like next meeting or whenever, it just doesn't.
it's just,
It'll be on the agenda for next meeting, and it'll be up to the board to take it off the table to act upon.
Well, thank you.
no.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the last application for tonight. This is planning board application number 2019-10, Durkee Street at Bridge Street. This is a request to initiate coordinated seeker review, request lead agency status for a future PUD site plan application.
And the applicant is actually Skyping.
Okay.
Skyping, huh?
The applicant is Skyping into this one.
That'll be
See how
different.
big his face is
Yeah.
up on the screen.
Except everybody has to turn around and look at him.
Like the Wizard of Oz. Start at 8.
Hello?
Hi,
Do we get a picture of it?
I'm not seeing a picture yet.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
There's a little camera on the bottom, so you have to, that's our camera. He might need to turn his camera on.
Todd, if you can hear us, can you turn your camera on?
Yes, I can hear you. My camera, I believe, is on. Let's see.
I'm not seeing you. Hang on.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
I see you.
Okay.
Yeah, can we hear him?
Turn the volume
Turn him
on
up.
right now. And Eva, can you just check my phone to make sure the YouTube is streaming correctly?
The YouTube is streaming, but we don't have, we don't have a vision of the screen. There, now we do, you're good.
Okay. So we've, he can hear us?
He can hear us. You can hear us, Todd, correct?
Yep, but we can't hear him.
Okay, we
Okay.
can't hear you now. Todd, can you just say something?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, we can hear you now. So we've introduced your application. If you can introduce yourself and,
Okay. Possibly with Prime Company. They're here to do the project on looking for a speaker lead agency action tonight.
okay. Once again, this is request to act as lead agency, planning board. I guess, does the planning board have any questions for the applicant in order to make that determination or make that request?
I have a question on this resolution to seek lead agency status that was pre-typed for us. I'm wondering about the wording of resolved, that the planning board hereby accepts the environmental assessment of the project prepared by Bradford Turner, PE, Farland Johnson. What does that mean, that we accept the environmental assessment?
Received, has received, and maybe we could add the word environmental assessment.
I would, has received, I think would be better wording. Because I don't like the wording in that accepts, okay.
At this point, no.
Can't hear you, what?
Sorry, is that acknowledges receipt then?
Yes, that would be much clearer. Okay, so that was the first question. The other thing is that some of the members of the board, me included, were concerned about segmentation, and that we are concerned that the seeker being presented to us isn't the full picture, and that we may want a larger picture. So even though we may agree to accept lead agency status for this particular seeker that you've handed us, we actually feel that we need to look at far more things in order to decide what will happen with this project. Again, it's a segmentation. There's a series that DEC has put out. Am I correct on that?
So,
So you might be getting ahead of yourself a little
Yes.
bit because this board has not yet established itself as lead agent.
Lead agency.
So,
And
but what
that-
I'm questioning is, I'm not sure what we're asking. If we're asking for lead agency status, what are we asking lead agency status over? What kingdom are we seeking to rule here? And I think it needs to be a larger one than has been spread out for us. So do we end up not making a motion, or do we make a motion that resembles this motion but asks for a larger area and status?
So two things. I think ultimately in the part one, there's a description of the project. I think that's what they're requesting that we act on lead agency on it. As far as segmentation and consideration of segmentation, one of the questions that the DEC outlines, which Dean is alluding to, is who is responsible for making decision on proceeding with a segmented review. The lead agent, and the answer is the lead agency is responsible for making this decision. The project sponsor and other involved agencies may supply information to assist the lead agency, but ultimately it's the responsibility of the lead agency to make a independent assessment of the actual extent or scope of the project and document the decision to undertake a segmented review. Documentation is important because segmented reviews are susceptible to challenge. So I think we really need to be lead agency first,
Okay,
and then answer those questions and make determination on whether we have a complete enough application, you know, to consider seeker, or we think this is segmented and we need more information.
so you would be happy just to have this one motion happen tonight? Are we gonna take, before we even make this resolution to seek lead agency status, will we take any input from the audience?
Yeah, I definitely
Okay.
think we'll do that. I think at this point, though, once again, the application is as presented by McFarland Johnson with the description, you know, as outlined in the part one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if the board is accepting lead agency, you know, we move forward lead agency based on the application, and then, you know, the applicant would be responsible in providing, you know, once again, all other supplemental information necessary for that review.
Mm-hmm.
If it's determined that we think there's something being segmented or is not included, then, you know, we would make that determination, you know,
Then.
through the environmental review process.
Okay.
Are you in agreement with that?
Yes, I'll refer to council on his guidance, but I am in agreement with what you said. You know, this is just asking you to act at. I'm sorry?
Terrible.
Do you have a headset?
Skyping is terrible.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Yeah, we are asking you to act through this process, and then the scope will be after this act. I would defer to council on this, but that's our understanding of how it worked with projects in the past.
Okay. 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 Is there, if there's not any further questions for the applicant at this moment? Nothing further? If not, we'll open the floor to public comment. If there's anybody that has any public comment at this time in regards to the planning board acting as lead agency. Once again, that's the only action we have here tonight, is the planning board acting as lead agency.
Thanks. Everybody. My name's Kevin Farrington. I'm a business owner downtown and also a property owner on City Hall Place. And I just want to say thank you all for being here. I know it's a thankless job, but the community relies on you to factor in community concerns, and it's an important job, and you're out late at night when you could be doing other things, and so I appreciate your involvement on board. Thank you. I will restrict my comments to, as you said, the seeker, the lead agency, and I do not speak for anyone but myself, but I can tell you that there is a petition which will be provided, which has almost unanimous support, with very real and very legitimate concerns for what this current departure from the approved plans will do to our ability to operate and have commerce in downtown Plattsburgh. Those concerns are real, they're legitimate, they're widespread, and we look forward to an opportunity to discuss them in great detail. Tonight's not the night, I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to address the issue of the lead agency and the seeker review, because that is going to be an important step. And before I do that, though, I would also like to raise an issue about potential conflict of interest for your consideration. There's two bodies of law that concern a planning board with conflict of interest. One is general municipal law. In the case of a professional engineer, the other is New York State education law. General municipal law defines an interest as anybody having a pecuniary, direct or indirect, material benefit accruing from, as a municipal officer, as a result of a contract with the municipality, which the person serves. And a municipal officer is considered any officer, employee of a municipality, whether paid or unpaid, including members of an administrative board such as this. Secondly, general municipal law declares that a municipal officer or employee willfully and knowingly violating the foregoing provisions of this article shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. Appreciate you serving. Hate to see you get a misdemeanor out of your service. So there's that. By the way, I would like, if the board is agreeable, I would like to offer this to the secretary and ask that it be made part of the meeting minutes. That is excerpt from General Municipal Law, Section 801. The New York State education law has a higher bar, and it prohibits anybody from actually sitting on a board who has any type of a contract for professional services or anything else. I'm afraid I don't have that excerpt. I would have liked to give it to you. I don't see it here. That's a higher standard. And the reason that I bring this up is because what you're about to discuss and what's been identified by the astute members of the board is that the DRI is a citywide project that the simultaneous, and that's very important, simultaneous, these things are occurring at one time, the simultaneous development of alternative or compensatory parking, as I refer to it, compensation parking, for those that are being lost in the Durkee Street lot or being contemplated, create a potential serious adverse impact to the businesses, the property owners, the workers, the patrons of businesses. The two are inextricably linked. You'll find that in the development agreement itself, which specifically says that the city will work together. In fact, it says that the seeker approval as part of the city permitting, the parties, that is Prime Development and the city of Plattsburgh, will need to obtain seeker approval. The parties agree to work together in preparing and submitting the needed applications to obtain seeker approval. So it's understood that they don't operate independently, they operate interdependently. It's not all that different if we go back to the waterfront, for example, where the city worked interdependently with the developer and prepared an entire environmental impact study. This is substantively, this is where this is headed. There's really no way, when you look at the substantive material and development and the potential impacts, that you can avoid an environmental impact study, and I'd like to talk more about that, but let me keep going. The development agreement also says that the city is working on a downtown parking plan. And I really can't wait to talk about some of the creative, to use a polite word, concepts that have been floated with respect to the parking plan, but again, I will defer that to a later time. The city is working on a downtown parking plan that will include on-street and off-street parking, which they will be implementing over the next six months. So again, you see a simultaneous activity going on, or at least overlapping, if not simultaneous. The city is in the process of buying real property to develop into a municipal lot that will help accommodate the loss of parking for redevelopment of the Durkee parking lot. A managed parking system for the downtown area is also in the process of being implemented. So right in the development agreement, where they give away our parking lot along with a check for $4.3 million, they acknowledge that the two are inextricably linked and dependent upon each other. So, therefore, I return to the concept of segmentation. Oh, well, and if you don't mind, let me just
So,
conclude the
Kevin,
concept of, yeah.
I apologize, we talked about time limit in the
Okay.
beginning of the meeting.
If you just don't mind indulging me for just a minute more, thank
Yep.
you, appreciate it. It's, it's a big project and, that's fine for common council, but, it's late, we're all missing the Stanley Cup finals, so let's just bang it out. And I appreciate you. And I'll try to be as brief as I can, although you guys know brevity's not my strong suit, so, but I will try. Let me just say, with respect to the issue of segmentation, the seeker rule is clear, and that segmentation means the division of the environmental review of an action such that various activities or stages are addressed under this part as though they were independent, unrelated activities needing individual determinations of significance. Obviously, these are not. In other words, the city must provide compensatory parking in order for this thing to work. The two cannot be separated. You have no choice but to declare the project definition as the entire downtown special assessment district and to include the DRI limits. Okay? All right, so also for further advice, we look to, it describes segmentation as actions commonly consist of a set of activities or steps. That's not unusual. The entire set of activities or steps must be considered the action. Whether the agency decision-making relates to the action as a whole or part of it. Considering only a part of or segment of an action is contrary to the intent of seeker. You can't do it. It says there's only two examples where people try to do segmentation. One is a disingenuous attempt to parcel in order to avoid a serious review. And the other is, bear with me, is when each part of the action is at a level of detail sufficient for an adequate analysis. And it's not, you cannot separate the two. So there is no exception to this rule for segmentation. And again, I would like to, with the board's permission, submit this for the record and ask that be included in the meeting minutes. And very quickly, and I'll wrap up here, for the seeker handbook, which I know you're all familiar with and has been astutely brought up by one or more people tonight, helps us answer some questions about segmentation. What is segmentation? There are two types where segmentation typically occurs. One is where a project sponsor attempts to avoid a thorough review. I'll leave the reader to decide if that's occurring. The other is where activities that may be occurring at different times or places are excluded from the scope. Well, they're not. They're occurring at the same time. We got to find compensatory parking to move them into here. It's got to coexist. Simply put, you can't move your primary parking from point A to point B and do a review on point A only. Defies logic. Doesn't make sense. So again, you have no choice but to declare the entire project area, meaning all the streets with parking modifications, all the parking lots, everything with as one entire environmental review, which absolutely will require a environmental impact study. And I would footnote that with the streetscapes are identified as one of the primary objectives in the DRI, those suffer. Instead, and as we get into the plan, what we'll see is instead of being improved, instead of the cozy, quaint downtown that people have asked for and have been established in all the city plans, instead of enhancing, embracing, and improving on that, this plan you'll see is doing the exact opposite by decimating, destroying, reducing, parking on top of, removing sidewalks. And we can talk more about that later. As in final closing, let me just touch on the 8-question test. If any one of these Isn't the answer yes? The agency should be concerned that segmentation is taking place. Number one, purpose.
So,
Is there a common purpose?
Kevin, I don't mean to, but.
I'm sorry, I know I'm taking up a lot of time.
I just wanna make sure there's time for others, but, I mean, ultimately, once again, I mean, unless you're in disagreement with the reading that I outlined in the beginning, we're just here to establish lead agency. We can't actually determine segmentation until we're lead agent. I mean, unless the board has a different.
Well, you might wanna be, as was stated here, you might wanna know what you're taking charge of. You might wanna know, I think that sounds a little like segmenting right there. Can I ask a question before I leave the microphone to other people who would like to speak? I think I've established clearly that the compensatory parking plans are inextricably linked to the Durkee Street development that is over there. Jim, I think, is it true, is there anybody on the board who has a contract that's involved with the design and may have a vested interest in the success of those plans or the viability of those? Is there?
Our firm AEDA has a contract with the city for parking plans on the former Glens Falls National Bank site.
Okay, and do you plan to recuse yourself from this review, this project?
So you can have a point of order, it's typically not a back and forth. He can certainly bring up that issue with the city's ethics board, and we can review it at the time.
And that's fine. I bring that point up, I think my point's well made. I would leave that for you to contemplate. Well, it's the individual's decision.
Thank you.
You know, the last thing, and I appreciate your indulgence, I really will shut up, I promise. You know, the last thing I'll say, if you'll allow me, and I will, by the way, also leave, this is the 8-question test, I would encourage everybody to read it. I think what you'll find is that the answer is clearly yes to all 8 out of 8. Forget 1, the answer is yes to all 8, and the answer is undeniably yes to at least 6. If you would, thank you very much. One last comment I'll make is that as you contemplate the overall larger scope and decide on the project scoping and, you know, what is the project that you're about to commence an environmental review of, there's a couple of things that we don't know. And for example, we haven't heard from the code enforcement officer, and nobody knows what the deficit is, what's the parking demand for our new facility. Now, I've counted maybe 330, depending on restaurant, which is high, you know. But these are questions that you're gonna wanna ask yourself, because this hasn't been displayed. And the point being, though, that's one example. What is our parking demand on the new site, and what's the shortfall? You know, all the strategic plans said, and the Carl Walker plan said, that they should provide their own demand on site. The RFP didn't ask for that. We don't know why the city, mayor, and council are opposed to the strategic plan.
I think, once again, we're here just for lead agency
Understood.
status.
But in terms of scoping, these are questions that I would just suggest that you ask amongst yourself as you're moving forward, because the parking is inextricably linked to the Durkee Street development. And these are questions that code enforcement does every day, not hard to do. We haven't seen that, and so as you're establishing that target, as they put it, of 289, that is false premise, because there is a new demand being introduced. And nobody's asked that question yet. I would encourage you to ask it as you move forward. Thank you for your indulgence. I took up more than my fair share of time. I hope you make it home for the 3rd period, and we'll look forward to additional comment as we proceed through the review process. And again, thank you for your service. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there any further members of the audience that would like to offer comment? If not, then I'll bring it back to the board. Once again, this is a determination just to act as lead agency in regards to discussions of segmentation, which was a clear discussion point. Once lead agency, or if we're granted lead agency by all the other involved parties, then as lead agency, we will be responsible to review the scope of the project, at least in accordance with these DEC guidelines, and determine whether we feel that their segmentation is occurring, whether more information is required.
So you just want this simple motion read into the minutes? Is that what you want? We read the motion? Okay.
So, but wait, we have the option to say, no, we want city council to be lead agent?
You mean to ask for another, we don't wanna be lead agent?
Right,
we
is that
wanna-
what we're, I mean, we mentioned that upstairs, I'm just trying to,
At this point, I mean, the request in front of us is for the planning board to act as lead agency.
okay.
If the
can
planning
vote
board
against it.
decides you don't wanna be lead agency, I guess it'd be another involved agency, but at this point, the application is, your request is for us to be lead agency,
That's correct.
so.
And there's
we
really
have
no
a-
other precedent for having someone else as lead agent, right?
it's-
Planning board is likely the best suited
Likely the best
board to
suited.
do that. You guys do it more frequently than the common council does.
Okay. Thank you, okay.
I'd like to make a motion? This wordy thing, gonna read it. Resolution to seek lead agency status. Whereas on April 26, 2019, a new application was filed by Bradford Turner, P.E. of McFarland Johnson to be considered in support of a request for a site plan review to build a mixed-use development to be located upon a parcel of land at the corner of Durkee Street and Bridge Street, consisting of approximately 3.35 acres of land, and, could use more commas in this, whereas on May 24th, 2019, a new application was filed by Bradford Turner, P.E. of McFarland Johnson to be considered in support of a request for a planned unit development to be located upon a parcel of land at the corner of Durkee Street and Bridge Street, consisting of approximately 3.3 acres of land. Now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Board of the City of Plattsburgh, New York, that in accordance with the New York State Environmental Quality Review, (SEQR) regulations, the Planning Board of the City of Plattsburgh hereby announces its intent to serve as lead agency for this SEQR review, and be it further resolved that the Planning Board hereby acknowledges receipt of the environmental assessment of this project prepared by Bradford Turner, P.E. of McFarland Johnson, and be it further resolved, the Planning Board has determined that as the proposed action occurs substantially contiguous to a district determined by the Commissioner of the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, to be eligible for listing on the State Register of Historic Places as listed in 6 NYCRR Part 617.4B9, and the project is located within a city having a population of less than 150,000 persons, and includes approximately 125 to 150 residential units to be connected to existing public water and sewerage systems. The proposed unlisted action exceeds the 25% threshold defined in 6 NYCRR Part 617.4B53, and is therefore defined as a Type 1 action under SEQR, and be it further resolved, the city planner is hereby authorized and directed to serve by mail a notice of intent to establish lead agency and SEQR lead agency coordination request on behalf of the planning board to all involved or interested agencies identified in Part 1B of the full environmental assessment form submitted by the applicant, and will provide them with a copy of the full environmental assessment form.
That's nice. You did good, Bob.
So we need a second.
I will second.
Okay, motion by Marissa, second by John.
You weren't too hard.
Roll call.
James Abdullah.
Yes.
John Canoza.
Yes.
Melissa Gilbert.
Yes.
Derek Rosenbaum.
Yes.
Richard Perry.
Yes.
Thank you. So at this point, is there any other business
Take back the time.
from the, oh,
Thank you.
No, sorry.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have any minutes?
Is there any other business, for the board?
Minutes? Minutes?
Minutes.
No minutes?
Minutes? Where are we? In terms of what was the last one we actually approved?
So in terms of the minutes, the question comes down to approval of minutes. Right now, our minutes are essentially
Audio.
an outline of the board letter that goes to the, each applicant. So essentially, the minutes are the applicant, and then it outlines the bullet points of what the board decided. They're not word for word, they're not of anything.
Didn't we make a decision on that, didn't it?
Back in August,
And-
last year, we did make a decision last year, the Borough Open Meetings Law, the board is not required to approve minutes, and therefore they were not going to be submitted to the board anymore for approval, because it is not a requirement under Open Meetings Law, or any other
We've been getting them
law.
forever, I don't understand.
Makes me very uncomfortable to not get minutes, so
Yeah.
can this board request that we get minutes?
Yes, I'm happy to provide them.
So ultimately, I guess,
The board has
I
no
mean,
jurisdiction to approve them.
Dean, what is the opinion of reviewing and approving board minutes?
It's a customary practice, it's not built into the open meetings law, as Shalice just said, so it's a matter of resource allocation and benefit from the board. If you deem it worthwhile of the resources, then it's up to you, but it's not mandated by a state statute.
Okay, so with that said, I mean, what does the board want to see at this point? The meeting minutes that are produced are basically a reiteration of the approval letter.
So if we have
If we-
comments, and we make comments as part of our vote or some other
It'll be
reason,
in the
that
letter.
never, does that end up in the letter, or does it?
Minutes under Open Meetings Law is a record of any action taken by the board, it's not,
Action.
yes, it's the action, it's the motion made by the board. That is how it's defined in the Open Meetings Law.
So if I'm not sure why we would approve that level of minutes. We've already made an approval of that by our application. I mean, unless people want that as the minutes, just to remind each.
And the conditions are usually in there with the motion,
Yeah.
if we have them.
Our office just does not have the resources to do the verbatim minutes that you guys want, and not just verbatim, but adding all the detail that you want. You just don't have that availability of time.
But there are
We do have the record of.
there are tapes, audio, it's online now, you
Yeah.
can watch the meetings if we wanna watch the meetings.
They're all recorded, posted to YouTube. Yeah.
I mean, my opinion is that we're not reviewing and approving minutes. That my opinion is we don't review and approve minutes if that's what our level of minutes are. You know what I mean? They're just an outline of the applications that have been reviewed and then what our bulleted point determination was.
It is actually recommended by Robert Strickland to not do anything other than a record. Adding comments leaves us up to the determination of what do I, as the writer of the minutes, feel is the most important comment.
Most
Do I
important.
include every comment that was made?
Right.
Then it's what is being left out.
It's
Should've known that years
leads
ago.
to editorialization of what was said, because they're transcribed a 3-hour meeting now into record would be.
Right, so you keep your notes from what you wrote from the meeting before, and if the same thing is coming up next meeting, bring it in and look back on that, that's what I do.
Because I mean, again, what he's talking about is, say I miss a meeting, somebody misses a meeting, and you have to familiarize yourself with the record. How do you
For
know?
any meeting where we have an application coming back, I am providing the letter that was sent to the applicant, what was needed, what comments the board, what information was requested by the board.
Yeah.
So if the board requested more information from the applicant, that is in the letter, and the letter I am including in every packet for you guys.
I think it's up to board members, if you miss a meeting, you watch the YouTube video.
Yeah.
Whether it's live or later on, I think that's the easiest
Yeah.
way around that.
That's probably a better thing than getting edited.
Yeah.
What have been over the past edited minutes.
Yeah.
So now that we've got that, I didn't realize they were all posted in, as
Yeah,
far back
actually,
as how long?
Somebody just showed me recently how to actually post the YouTube video right onto the website. So you can go on YouTube, but they're all on YouTube right now. But you can actually, I will backdate and post all the ones that have already been recorded and are on YouTube. I can post them directly to the website.
There was a council resolution back in the 90s that we used to transcribe verbatim every word in the zoning board meetings. And then the council resolution called for an abbreviated summary of the minutes with the tape being the actual record. And remember, back then, it was all done by cassette tape. So that was the record, and the boards reviewed the abbreviated version of it. And that's basically Jack Stewart in the 90s, so give you something to research if you need it.
I wouldn't mind personally at least getting a copy of the outline minutes you give. You know, just a copy in the packet each month, so then we know from the previous.
For all the things, even if they're not carrying over.
At least the previous meeting, and then if there's you know what I mean, something's being reheard from months past, at least seeing the last thing, I would appreciate that. Then it at least gives us a good summary of what, you know, the letter was that went out to the applicant and what bullet points they're working from.
Yeah, we normally use it a lot.
Well, but for the rest of the group,
Yes.
yeah.
No, but I think it's a good discussion, because it makes me now realize if I do miss a meeting, I'm just gonna watch it on YouTube.
Yep.
Catch up that way.
Yep, but I think that takes off, takes away from the board this approval of minutes.
Yeah.
May not have a majority here on it, or we may have a majority here on it, but that's, okay.
She's standing strong. She disagreed in the 90s.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Stop sulking.
So that's it. At this moment, that's what we'll stick with and move forward.
All right. I'm old fashioned too.
Okay. I guess do I have a motion to adjourn if there's no further discussion?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion by Derek. Have a second?
Second.
Second by John.
Should be the
Yes.
easiest one.
Yes.
I had mentioned to you about, if we're gonna take a roll call vote, that it's a varying name, not in the same order every single time. Cause in the same order every single time leaves a deciding vote to the last person, which is why the zoning board switched to paper votes, which were then read out loud. So,
Okay.
can we talk about that at the next meeting and get that changed so that you have a random
So I think,
reading of names?
We can talk about it.
I think we talked about it now, so the people in agreement with that, it's sort of a rolling,
Rolling roll call.
okay, a rolling roll call.
You're
So
right. Mm-hmm.
We'll work on that towards the next meeting. So in the meantime, I think you made it to
Oh.
close the meeting, or to close the meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. I was gonna be like, who are you talking about?